Buenas tardes. I'm so glad to be here. I've been looking forward to this. My name is CIMI Alvarado. I'm from El Paso, Texas, Segundo Barrio. That's where I grew up. That's where my story starts. I grew up on 709 Alley E. It's an alley in Segundo Barrio, right across the street from Sacred Heart. I went to private school from a scholarship from Sacred Heart's church. That's why I have so much respect and love for that church. You know, they're Jesuitas, so they're a little radical over there. That's what I love about them. They sent me to private school, little barrio boy over there in the Northeast, Our Lady of the Assumption, all the way up to Cathedral. I ended up leaving Cathedral when I was a freshman. It was a crazy story, and this is, you know, when I said I was going to tell you some mural stories, you know, I'm going to tell you some of my stories too. One of the reasons I left Cathedral was I was going to say I used to like to party, but I still like to party. I grew up right there in Segundo, and if you guys are about my age, remember that we used to cross the bridge. You know, we used to cross it, and we used to go to the drink and drowns. You know, I know you guys remember the drink and drowns, $10, and then you crawl back, right? And then, you know, I was a freshman in high school, and I went to one of those, and I was with my friends from the neighborhood, and I ended up getting into a fight that was not even my fight. You know, I ended up getting into this thing, and I got arrested in Juarez, right? So I was supposed to go back to school, and I couldn't go back to school. You know, I was somewhere else. And my mother finally figured out where I was, because of course I couldn't call her from there. She figured out where I was, crossed over and got me. So I go back to public school. I was already in high school, so I go back to Bowie High School. And honestly, with all respect to Cathedral and private school, that was one of the best things that happened to me, going back to public school. Thank you. I go back to public school, and I found myself again. Going to private school, I was in a very crazy, you know, I couldn't find myself. My culture was not there. Nothing was there. Going to Our Lady of the Assumption, you know, it's a great school, but it's a military school. A lot of the kids from Fort Bliss, that's where they go. You know, they don't have any ties to the city. So when I go back to Bowie, I find myself, I find an organization, MECHA, Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, one of the first, or maybe one of the only high schools that has us. That's a university organization. So I started learning more about Chicano movement, about the Chicanos, about being Mexican American, you know, calling yourself Chicano. I have this, and then I meet Gaspar Enriquez, right? So at the same time, I'm learning about myself and I'm learning about art. You know, going through the barrio, I start seeing all these pieces that are going on, you know, these great pieces of artwork, you know, Carlos Callejo, you know, Felipe Adame, and all these people. And, you know, I was young at the time, so those pieces had already gone up. I never understood what they were until I started learning about my own culture. Learning more about Chicano movement, I started getting more involved. We would go to a lot of marches. We would go to California and all this. But I always thought about, what is this about? Why are we going to all these marches? What happens after? You know, and we have a dicho in Spanish that says, las palabras se las lleva el viento. So I always thought about, we go to these marches and we yell, and then we all go home. Okay, so I started thinking to myself, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about all these things that we want to change? What I learned about, you know, I was getting involved in Chicano movement, and a lot of people were talking about, we got to tell our people who we are. We got to educate our people. You know, we got to get the maestros in there and, you know, start educating them. We got to get them into, you know, being CEOs. We got to do all that. So I thought, yeah, we need to do that. But I think we need to work with the educational system. You know, even now, we go to our schools and we want our people, we want our youth to be proud of where they're from or who they are. But our educational system is not teaching who we are. You know, I sometimes get in trouble because I say, you know, Cesar Chavez is not everything in our culture. There's a lot of leaders that came out from our community are still in our community. Segundo Barrio has so much history that I don't know we can fill. I mean, I don't know how many books we can fill with the history that it has, you know, going to the Mexican Revolution and all that. So that was my mission then. We got to tell our stories, and let's do it through something that people will be exposed to every day, right? So we go to the marches and we forget about it, but what if we put a giant painting, and you pass by it every day, and maybe you start questioning, hey, who's that person? Or why are they doing that, or what are they doing? So one of our last murals that we did here in Art Space, and one of the reasons that the image or the images are there is we have a theater called the Abraham Chavez Theater. I don't know who Abraham Chavez is. I cannot put a face to that person. So now you have a figure there that's Abraham Chavez, and he's doing this whole thing that, for the lack of words, I kept saying it's a desmadre that he's controlling, or he's conducting, right? So Abraham Chavez is conducting out this desmadre that's happening down here. So you have a wrestler that's jumping off his hand, that's Sin Cara, he's from Segundo Barrio. He's one of the first wrestlers to go to the WWE. He's from our community, he's from our barrio, but a lot of people don't know that. So we need to, start exposing some of these stories. You have Tintan, one of the first Pachucos that's from Juarez, right? Art Lewis. Art Lewis is like one of the biggest, jazz musicians it's not originally from El Paso, but he was in El Paso and he created this whole scene. So I started telling stories of Segundo Barrio. One of talking about the respect that I have for Sacred Heart. I did a mural for Father Ram. Father Ram is a great person that came in the 1950s. He was only here for about 6 years. And he created one of the first credit unions in the barrio. He got all these youth together, got a pickup truck donated. Then he got tools for the yard. So he started getting jobs for the kids that would go out and do yard work and they would get paid. But then he realized that, what are they gonna do with their money? So he started teaching them about banking and all that. So he created the union, the credit union. And so through that, there's so many stories that Father Ram did that I felt we have to tell this story. I was fortunate enough about 5 years ago, I don't remember. When I don't remember things, I just say it was 5 years. It could have been 52 and it's like 5 years, right? And my wife says, that was like 20 years ago, dude. But he came down, and he came to unveil the mural. And I was like, it was a big surprise. It kind of came together with another event that was happening. And I was so happy and so I felt so blessed because he came down to unveil the mural. And through my whole years of being in Mecha and being the Chicano movement, one of our biggest things is we're gonna do a protest. And we're gonna shut down the border, we're gonna shut down the bridge, the international bridge. That's how we're gonna show them who we are. But we never really did that, right? So Father Ram shows up and the mural's right on El Paso Street and Father Ram Street in the corner. So he shows up, there's a parade with him. That's where they ended up, the parade at the mural. So we're talking about like 500, 600 people that starts filling up the streets. And the traffic from the bridge cannot cross. You can't cross the street. So it starts backing up. So then eventually they had to close the bridge because the traffic was not moving. So I was like, this is amazing. After years and years after, this man shows up and I finally did something I wanted to do when I was young. And so stories like that have, I came back to El Paso, I left to Dallas, and I came back to Albuquerque and back to El Paso. I came back in 2007. And that's when I started creating more murals here in El Paso. And the stories that I have told have been a lot connected to Father Ram because most of the murals are in Segundo Barrio. I did a mural for the musicians that came out from Segundo Barrio, and one of the largest images is Steve Krosno. He was not from Segundo Barrio, but he did so much to help the musicians from there, from recording them to playing them in the air. So everybody calls it the Steve Krosno mural, but it's actually called the Barrio Soul mural. And a lot of these musicians that are still alive, a lot of them have passed away, have told their stories about this person, going from this man would go to Juarez and buy instruments or buy the sheet music, bring it back, and that's how they would learn how to play the instruments. They would have a rehearsal at the Sacred Heart Gym, and they would charge 5 cents or 10 cents for people to go in, and they would gather all this money, put it together and save it for Christmas, and then Father Ram and the musicians would buy toys or buy whatever, and then go around the barrio and give it to the kids. And that's, that's the respect that all these musicians and all these people have for him. So as we start doing all these stories, we're doing all these traditional murals. Then we got to look back, as I was saying, we do the protest and we go home. Then I felt like we have to go beyond this. We're creating these murals, and I wish I would be there every day in one of my murals all day so people can come and I would tell them what it means. But of course, we can't do that. So if we talk about what's going to happen in the future in muralism, we need to look into technology. I'm talking about the Steve Krasno mural because it's one of the first murals in El Paso that got augmented, right? And one of the things that we want to do is going back to the Chicano movement and about telling those stories about our people and making our people proud of who they are. I mean, you can go to the mural and see that there's a band, that's painted there, but who is that band? So now with augmentation, what we're doing is you go, you put your device, your phone, your iPad, whatever. It not only moves, but what we're doing is that you can click on every band, you'll have a biography of that band, you can listen, you can hit play, and you'll hear that song, right? So the connection. A lot of these bands, we listen to the oldies on Sundays. A lot of these songs are played on Sundays on the oldies, and people don't realize that those musicians are from El Paso. So, and there's also within that mural, with the biggest piece, which is Krasno, you can hit play, and there's a video where you can see a whole video of the Steve Krasno show from back in the days. So that's one of the things that we're doing with what is going to happen with the muralism, or what we're trying to do with muralism going forward. Another thing is when I started painting, I was actually a graffiti artist. That's how I connected with Gaspar Enriquez. Gaspar being an airbrush artist, he got me to do some airbrushing. I'm too lazy to clean my airbrush, and he still calls me about that. But I don't airbrush anymore just because of that. So I went back now to spray painting. The technology now, as we move forward, now the technology of graffiti art is just amazing. When I was painting, when I was young, 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, we only had Krylon or Rust-Oleum, with about 20 colors that you would go to Home Depot or you go to, wherever. And now, we have about 250 colors that you can choose from. You see the range of colors. The valve system is almost like an airbrush. You have about 20 different tips or caps that you put on a can. So, it's just so amazing where everything is developing. So now that's why you see all these huge, murals that are done with aerosol art or spray paint. So I think, that's where we're heading. And I think it's in El Paso. I think we're a young, old town, a young, old city that I think we're seeing a great development in the arts. In the last years, the city has put out so much money and so much effort into the arts that it's been amazing, and I think that's where El Paso is going. I think we're creating a lot of things. One of the things why I'm dressed like this is that I'm painting outside, right? So right now, I'm owner of a Calavera culture shop. So we brought in 5 artists, 3 from out of town, 1 from New York, 1 from Philadelphia, and 1 from Los Angeles, that we create, and then the other locals, and I'm creating a mural too. And that's what we want to do, just create beautiful art throughout the city that has messages and stories, those stories in those murals that need to be told, especially to our community, especially to our youth, so that they keep being proud of who they are and where they're from. And this is a great city with a lot of history, and we need to be pushing it forward and flaunting it to the rest of the world. And that's all I gotta say. Thank you.